So you're passionate about this whole music thing, but it just ain't hitting for you. You've been at it for a while, but you're still broke. Well, I've got some really good news for you. All isn't lost. I'm Terrence, and I've been a full-time musician for over 30 years. And in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly how to turn your passion into a paycheck. So this video is the first video in a series of 3 videos where I'm going to show you exactly what you need to be doing right now to put money in your pocket. And this one is by far the most important because it deals with the foundation. So make sure you watch this all the way to the end. Okay, so the foundation of what you need to be doing to be successful and put money in your pocket is broken down into 5 components. And the first starts with a mindset shift into believing that it's possible and believing that you can do it. So about 15 years or so ago, I was at home chilling with some homies of mine. And I think we were watching a football game or something like that. And these 2 guys that were my friends, they're musicians as well. And we came up together and learned music together and all of that. So we're really close. And at some point during the night, we were talking about music stuff, but then we got into the game. And at one point, like, the game went on a commercial, and one of the guys that was there, out of the blue, just came out and said, "Hey, T, man, you know what? You're the reason that I've stayed in this music thing so long. Because, like, when I was doubting myself and all of this kind of stuff, you believed in it. You believed that we could do it. So I kind of stayed in it because of you, man. And I just wanted to say thank you for, for your belief in this whole music thing and keeping me in the, in the belief as well." And, as a guy, I was just like, yeah, man, whatever, it's cool and all that. But, inside I probably was like, oh my gosh, just probably crying or whatever, right? But here's the kicker. Like, right after he said that, my other friend that was there, my other best friend, he came out and piggybacked on him and said the same thing. He was like, "Man, T, that's something I actually been wanting to tell you for a while too. Like, man, like when we were in college and stuff, man, and I was thinking about like this stuff ain't gonna work, and you were sticking with it, man. Like I stuck with it because you stuck with it, and because I did, like now I have some success." And again, I was like, man, y'all tripping, whatever, just going on. And then I probably went in my room and cried or something, right? But the lesson that I got from this, and this is something that I've seen pan out in so many different situations, is that all of this really does start with a belief. It starts with a deeply held belief that you can actually do this and that it's actually possible. And one of the biggest issues that we musicians deal with today is this really extreme skepticism that this is not possible. And to be honest, I get it. Like, so many things around us, dictate that this isn't possible. Like, you probably know yourself, like it's all people normally get is these low paying gigs, $50, $75, $100 here and there. And even if you do a bunch of those in a year, you're not going to make enough money to take care of yourself or go full time as a musician. And, with all of the social media and stuff being saturated, quote unquote, like it's really hard to see this picture or see a path to success that you can really do this and be successful. But I got to tell you, man, it's like it really does start with this foundational belief that this is possible and that you can do it. Like there's nothing that you can achieve that's outside of that. If you don't start with that, you won't get to that end goal. And this is what I want to admonish you to do in this first part of this framework that we're looking at, is to really reach down into yourself and be like, man, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this happen. Forget what everybody else doing. I see y'all trying over there and yeah, y'all failing. And it looks like failures around me. It looks like it's not possible. But I got to tell you, like, you got to dig down and you got to be like, man, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to shoot for it. I'm going to give it time. I'm going to give it the opportunity. I'm going to do all of this stuff and I'm going to shoot for the moon. And if I hit the stars, that's okay. And that's what this whole first part of this system starts with. It starts with the belief. So you got to start there in order to reach your goals. Now, the second part of this foundational thing is defining what success is to you. So a couple of months ago, I got into a conversation with someone who had commented on one of my videos. And what this person's comment said, it was something to the extent of, and I'm paraphrasing it. He said, Terrence, yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I hear you talk about all the time about being successful as a musician and some of the things that you can do and all of this kind of stuff. And I hear other people talking about it as well. But I got to tell you, I'm an older musician. This was an older guy. I'm an older musician, and when I'm looking at social media and all of this kind of stuff that the younger people are doing just doesn't interest me. So how is it that I can be successful? And after going back and forth on that post for a little while, he decided to book me for a consultation. And by the way, I am available for consultations. You can book me. My booking calendar is in the link in the description of this video, just throwing that out there to you. But he booked a consultation with me. And when we got on this consultation, we were on a Zoom call together, and we got back into that conversation. He was telling me about, these things that he's looking around on social media and is like, I don't see the possibility of being successful. And I asked him this question. I said, why are you defining success by what that means for somebody else? Why are you letting others dictate what success means to you? And it's funny because he paused for a minute. It was like he had heard something that he had never heard before. And he's like, never really thought about it that way. And then we got into a conversation about what success meant to him. And as it turns out, it was funny because success in his mind didn't even mean any of the things hardly that it means to a lot of the other musicians. This guy was getting ready to retire. He had a lump sum of savings saved up where he could retire and he was going to be good for the rest of his life. He wasn't looking to get on the road and tour or anything like that. He just wanted to make a little money doing some gigs here and there, his solo stuff, his original stuff, and, maybe make a little money here and there and, get some notoriety for it. Now, it was really simple like that. So it didn't really have much to do with what we typically think a lot of these other people are looking for in terms of goals and success. And I found that that's the case with a lot of us. I found that we don't really define success for ourselves. And that's a really detrimental thing, because when we don't know what success looks like, we're basically just kind of farting in the wind, so to speak. Like, we're just going at it and hoping something happens, hoping we can make some money, hoping that somebody notarizes. We have this sort of hope marketing, sort of hope goal that we're doing. That's what I tend to call it. But when you sort of define and look at what this means for yourself, and you say, this is what I want to achieve, this is the amount of money I want to make, like specific amounts, is it 10,000 a month? Is it 20,000 a month? Whatever. Is it whatever the sort of ultimate goals that you have? Those things need to be defined if you want to be successful, because if you don't define them up front, it's like if you don't define the destination, you're not going to even know when you get there. Right? It's like using maps on your phone, like putting in the GPS. Like, if you don't know where you're going, how are you going to know when you get there? Like, you see how that works? So this is a very foundational, crucially important principle in success, and the things that you're going to do to be successful as a musician. You have to define what success means to you and not let that be dictated by something or someone else or what everyone else is doing. Okay, so those two were extremely important for sure. But these next ones are really going to get into the nitty-gritty of how you need to think about this process. So make sure you stick with me. So the third one in this process is, don't focus on results, but focus on the feeling and on the process. So here's the thing, like, what happens is, when we do define these goals, and in a lot of cases we don't, like I just mentioned, but when we have some sort of idea of what success means to us, we get sort of hyper focused on the end result of that, right? So as a content creator and as a musician myself over the past few years, particularly when I first started creating content, I was learning how to do YouTube, and there's all of these YouTube gurus telling you how to do this and what to look for and all of this kind of stuff. And for the longest period, my mind got wrapped up into those analytics and into the metrics and into like what I was doing and how close I was to getting so many subscribers and all of that. And what I found was that affected the way that I did things. And I think even looking back on it affected the quality of my content, of the content that I was putting out. And what I mean by that, the content that I put out was still great, I think. But I think I was focusing on it in terms of like, when I was thinking about what kind of videos can I do? What are people interested in? My mindset was particularly on that because I was thinking like, if I do this particular thing, this is going to get this many subscribers and this is going to get this many, views and all of that kind of stuff. And what happens is, luckily for me, it didn't, get out of hand. But what happens to a lot of content creators and a lot of musicians when it comes to stuff like this is that they get hyper focused on that, and then they go to no end because that sort of scale is a sliding scale. It keeps changing. What you need to do to get people to view and all of this kind of stuff. This is why you see such negativity and all of that kind of stuff on social media, because people have learned to tap into, like, if I say this thing, if I say this controversial thing, if I do this particular thing, I know people are going to be mad at it, and then anger, that brings in the views and all of this kind of stuff. So let me start doing these things. And then it's like a never ending cycle. Let me keep doing these things. So I keep getting the views and over and over and over and over again. And it gets to the point to where they're not even making content focused on value for the watcher or the viewer anymore. It's just like they're just doing stuff to get views. So when you have these goals that you're trying to reach, when you're trying to, reach, whatever your goal is, your success goals that we just talked about, you got to really focus on the gratitude and the feeling that you get from the process of doing it, rather than the sort of dopamine hits and all of that kind of stuff that you get from getting another 10 subscribers, another 10 followers and all of that kind of stuff. Because I'm telling you, it's fleeting. And you will get wrapped up in those numbers, like even in the money, like I'm doing this to make more money and all of that kind of stuff. You will get wrapped up in that stuff. And that's going to affect the quality, and these sort of next two principles that we're going to talk about is going to greatly affect those. But you can't be focused on the end results all the time. You can't be hyper focused. Of course, you're going to look at your goals. That's the whole point of setting them, but you can't be so hyper focused on them that you let that affect you. And the biggest kicker about it, what happens is, even if none of that negative stuff starts happening, this is the biggest thing. When people don't get to the numbers or money or whatever that they think they should be at, they quit. Because they were so hyper focused on that. And the thing about this music game, it's the long game. If you're going to be in this for the long haul, you got to be okay with time passing and you not, meeting that goal. 6 months, 3 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years. You got to be okay with staying in the process that long. So anyway, this is the principle. Stay focused on the process of getting better and learning, and on the feeling and the gratitude of being able to do that. And if the results come from that, they do. And if they don't, keep doing what you're doing. But the good news about it is that sort of longevity mindset is going to get you to your goal faster. All right, so this next one is a big one, and that is focus on building skills that bring value. So a couple years ago, it was funny. I got a call. I was on my way home, actually from another gig, and I got a call from someone that was looking for a keyboard player, like a last minute keyboard player to fill in on this gig. And what happened was they hadn't heard from their keyboard player in like the last 5 or 6 days or something like that. He hadn't called, so they didn't know if he was going to show up for the gig or not. So this was about 2 hours before their gig was supposed to start, and they were anxious to get someone in there. So they called me. I showed up for the gig and got my stuff set up and all of that kind of stuff. And after 15 minutes of being there, their other keyboard player actually showed up. So he walked into the room with his equipment and stuff like that. And there was just like this really awkward moment of like, oh my God, he's here. And then I'm like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? And you could tell they were all baffled about, okay, they don't know whether not to just tell me, okay, that's okay, bro, break down your equipment and go home, or tell him to do that. So it was like this really awkward moment. But at the same time this was happening, the band leader gets a call from the bass player. The bass player is stuck on the side of the road because he had a flat on his car and he didn't have a spare tire. So he was waiting on the AAA service to get there. And if you know anything about AAA, particularly in a big city like the one I live in, like it could take 2 or 3 hours for AAA to get there and even get your car fixed and you get to where you're going, all of that kind of stuff. And that's on a good day. So that put the band leader in another panic. He was already panicking about, not having a keyboard player. Now he's dealing with 2 keyboard players being there, not knowing what to do. Now he's got to deal with not having a bass player. So he panicked, got on the phone and started trying to find another bass player and all of this kind of stuff. Now, in the midst of all of that, I look at this situation. I just come out to the band leader and I say, "Hey man, I play bass and I actually got my bass and an amp in the car. So if you want me to play bass, and I pretty much know most of these songs y'all doing, so if you want me to play, I can do it." And it's so funny when I said that, man. Like all of the other band members in the room, they paused for a minute and it was like they looked at me like I was Jesus or something. It was like this crazy moment, and they was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that'll be great." So long story short, I ended up playing bass on the gig, and like I ended up knowing all of the songs that they were doing because I had played them several times before. And since then, since that moment happened, this band has called me. They've put me on so many gigs. I've flown out of town with them, like all expense paid gigs, and been paid very well on gigs, on keyboard, bass, and drums. Like it's just the craziest thing. But what that situation taught me is that, like, when you have skills that are valuable to someone else, you get paid handsomely for them. This is why I always tell musicians, and this is us getting to this 4th principle that we're talking about, is developing skills that are valuable to other people. Like when you're able to do that, you're positioning yourself to make more money. And that's what it's going to take in this sort of competitive industry that we have. Like the more skills that you have, the better. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean playing several different instruments and stuff like that, although that is a good way to do it. It could be anything. It could be good leadership skills, or even learning to record, mix and master in the studio, or anything like that. The more skills that you have, the more valuable you become. An example I always use when I say that is that it's not the person who speaks perfect English that gets the job, or the person who speaks perfect Spanish that gets the job. It's the person that can speak both pretty good, that's bilingual, that speaks both languages pretty good, that's most likely to be hired, because they're, in most cases nowadays, are the most valuable asset, right? So again, the lesson here is that to be successful in this sort of foundational thing that we're talking about, one of the things that you want to do and that you want to focus on is adding skills to yourself that are valuable to other people. Now, this 5th thing is something that's so valuable. I still use this thing to this day to get gigs and to make a lot of money from gigs. And that is, what you want to do is focus on serving others through your music. Now, what do I mean by that? As an example, let me tell you how I speak to clients and stuff that hire me for gigs, particularly like brides and couples, because I do a lot of wedding receptions and stuff like that. When I'm on the phone with someone and we're negotiating and they're telling me about their day and the date and time and all of that, I'm listening to them say stuff like, "Hey, we want a band. This is the type of music that we like. This is the time it's going to be. It's going to be at this venue. It's a really nice venue," and all of that. And I'm hearing all of that. And what I'm doing is I'm translating that into something that I can speak back to them that's going to be extremely valuable to them. So let me tell you what I mean. What I know about, because I've been doing this for so long, what I know about brides and couples and even club owners and all of that is that they want something specific. So what I did was, in a particular situation, I'm listening to them say that, and I repeat back to them. I say, "Okay, so let me make sure I'm hearing you right. You want a band, you want the night to be rocking, you want to have a really good time, and something that pretty much everyone wants. And I already know you want your friends to be bragging about your wedding, like how good this reception was, like after it was over. Like you want them talking about it for weeks and years to come. You don't want to have to deal with bands that are not on time. We're always on time. We're going to be there 2 or 3 hours early. We're going to be set up and ready to go. You don't want to have to worry about a band that's going to be like drinking and getting drunk at your wedding reception and then like trashing the places. We don't do that kind of stuff. And when I'm saying all of this, it's funny because you can see, especially when I'm face to face with them, you can see their faces light up like, oh my God, you get me, right? Why is that? It's because I've focused on changing what I do or turning what I do into a value proposition for them rather than something for me. And this is in contrast to what a lot of musicians do. They focus on themselves mostly. They talk about how good they are, what they can do, the type of music they play. You know, their drummer is a Berkeley graduate and has a master's or doctorate degree. Like, nobody care about that stuff. People want what they want. This is a extremely important principle that you really got to get. This is one that's gonna, like, at the core of the foundation of this thing. This is what you really need to understand. Focusing on serving others and giving value to others through what you do is what's going to get you the money and get you the success that you want. Packaging what you do into a value proposition for someone else. So you may say, okay, Terrence, I hear you, but how do you do that? Like, with the album or on social media and stuff like that. Well, let me tell you how I did that with this album. I just released an album less than a year ago now. And when I was promoting it, this is what I did. It's a smooth jazz instrumental album that I did. So in all of my promotions, I talked about how this project is going to be for like when you get off of work in the afternoon on a Friday night and you light some candles and get some wine and get in the bathtub and relax to it. This is a de-stress album. This is what you kick back and listen to while you're cooking on a Saturday morning or while you're doing chores around the house. You put this on to kind of ease the mood in your house. Creating a value proposition to what they're getting out of it. And this is the kicker. This is the question that you need to be answering in all of your music and everything you need to do, because people are asking this question. People are asking, what's in it for them? This is the biggest question that you got to answer when you're doing everything. When you're talking to clients, when you're putting out music, when you're putting stuff on social media, what is in it for them? And when you find that out, when you create that value for them and you actually go through on their value, I'm telling you, the sky is the limit. People will pay you limitless amounts of money when they're getting something out of it. So in this album situation, it's not me saying me, like what most musicians do. My music, it's me. I'm great. I've done this great work on this album. This album is so great. Listen to it. You really need to get it. And people are like, okay, yeah, that's cool. But like, what's in it for me? And what I did instead of doing that, or at least in addition to that, was answer the question and start with that. I said, this is what you're going to get out of it. This is how you use it. This is an album. This is a jazz album. This is relaxation. This is a Saturday morning sleep in, kind of just put this on in the background when you're falling asleep at night. Oh, and it just so happened to be $25. So what that becomes is a situation where they're investing in themselves, not just investing in me. You see how that works? It's like this tricky chess game that you play with this whole thing, but it's an authentic thing because you're really giving value to other people. So again, this is the fifth and most important principle, or at least one of the most important principles in this whole thing, is focusing on serving others and giving value to others through what you're doing and answering that question of what's in it for them. So these are the 5 foundational skills that you need to be successful as a musician. Now, in the next video in this series, I'm breaking down a particular framework that's working really well for musicians like you and I to make lots of money right now. And I'm going to break this whole framework down in detail. And you want to check that video out right here. And if you don't see it right now, don't worry. It'll be available in a couple of days. So make sure you come back and click on it in this part of the screen right here. And I'll see you in the next video.